How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji. Welcome to another episode of Tear Talk. Guys, I have an update here for the A. Marie case. There's a great article. You can find it on her mother's Facebook page. I have it here right now. Let me just show you the title. It's called Cleveland Rape Case of 5-Year-Old Girl Will Test Limits of Juvenile Justice for Very Young Defendants. And it's written by David Gambino. David Gambino is a court reporter for the Plain Dealer and Cleveland.com. He joined the news outlet in 2025 after covering crime and justice for the Decatur Daily in Alabama. Now, guys, this is an interesting update because it introduces us to something that was sent my way, but it wasn't confirmed, that the child, A. Marie, I've got a picture of her here. Let me get you the picture of her. So this child, it says that she's autistic. So this puts a little bit more into how egregious the act was. But remember, guys, the 10-year-old and the 9-year-old have already been charged with rape, attempted murder. Is it kidnapping? So they're already being charged with some high-level charges, but most likely, even if you were to add like a hate crime enhancement, most likely this will still stay within the juvenile system. So prosecutors could file hate crime enhancements if they could prove the act was motivated by race, disability, or another protected class, and autism would be considered a disability. But because the suspects are juvenile, any hate crime enhancements would probably stay within the juvenile system. That means the label could be added, but the sentencing options remain limited. It doesn't open the door to adult penalties, or at least that's what I'm being told. And practically, even with enhancements, the maximum jurisdiction is juvenile court until the age of 21. That's what I'm being told. But what I would like to do is I would like to read this article, discuss anything relevant, but this is a great step forward, and it's good to see that we do got some support from the media here. So Cleveland, Ohio. Ohio's juvenile justice system is facing a test that it wasn't built to handle. A 9-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl are accused of the attempted murder and rape of an autistic girl, a case that forces the courts to adjust to defendants in elementary school. So, I mean, it's to be honest with you, it takes a lot of courage for the mother to have just challenged the system like this because she wants justice. So bravo to A. Marie's mother, because change is needed. And the justice that we want for A. Marie will wind up being justice for others who could be vulnerable or, God forbid, could be victim if this happens again. So this is good. It gives us a chance to maybe look at things and hopefully try to make an effort to prevent. So these types of cases don't happen very often, but when they do, the legal system isn't prepared for them. That's Michael Benza, a law professor at Case Western Reserve University. We're not equipped for defendants of this age in the criminal justice system. Let's see. Prosecutors charged the children Wednesday in connection with the September 13th attack behind the Collinwood Athletic Complex near East 148th Street. Police said the youths lured the 5-year-old to a field, assaulted her, and left her naked and unconscious. She was found about 2 hours later and hospitalized for days. So there's some more details here. The charges have prompted painful questions. What does justice look like when the accused are in elementary school? And they're not just many adults, said Thomas Stickrath, former director of Ohio's youth prison system and chair of the Ohio Juvenile Justice Working Group. It's tough for a judge to deal with someone that young facing a crime this serious. For the mother of the 5-year-old victim, the challenge is equally personal. She is demanding justice for her daughter. And then you can see the support from the community that are coming from my channel as well, along with others. So this is going to carry a very powerful message. I think this is going to create some impact that won't just stop at Ohio. because I think there are some eyes on this right now from all over the nation. Maybe even from my YouTube channel, I see people in the UK and they're talking about the Bulger case. So I think the stuff that's being done here now could have a great impact. It's unacceptable that my daughter's life has been forever changed, and it would be unjust if those responsible were to go unpunished. And she wrote this in a social media post that went viral. And we did discuss that. And guys, by the way, I did a video on what justice would look like for A. Marie, and we're looking at 3 components: accountability or punishment, but I like to say the word accountability. Then you got some level of rehabilitation because you got to cross into preventive measures. And then you also have healing for A. Marie. But any attempt at justice must be anchored in what the family wants, the family of the victim. She stressed the damage to her daughter, saying, "These kids broke my daughter's spirit. They took away her boundaries." That's a powerful statement to me, by the way. They took away her boundaries. Boundaries are what we have to keep us safe. So when those boundaries get violated at such a young age, especially, it could literally change how you view the world, how you try to navigate in it. It violates that safety at such an extreme level, and also at such a young age. So it adds, because it's hard to rebuild, especially for such a young girl. But experts who work with traumatized children caution that a state youth facility is not the solution for children this young who are accused of crime. Okay, so now we got the debate, which we expected. People want justice, and I totally understand that, said Gabriella Celeste, co-director of Case Western Reserve University's Childhood Studies program. But accountability does not mean prison, particularly with young children. Prison is a space that will fail everybody. It's funny, guys. I want to mention something. I say accountability as opposed to punishment because in prison's reformative. And, there's so many people that are against the criminal justice system, against putting people in prison. But there are people that are in those prison systems, in those jail systems, that help people better themselves, and they do it within a safe environment. That is key. Like, basically, if these 10-year-old and 9-year-old, if they're a danger, if they're a threat, then what we could do is we can put them into a place where we can control that threat, and then we could work on them, and this could be done safely. So a lot of these people that push away from the prison center and they try to sell that it will fail, I think they don't take into account the work that goes behind that wall, because rehabilitation is done behind that wall every day, especially in the juvenile justice system, where juvenile justice is all about intervention and rehabilitation. So I think if you look at the juvenile justice system, or look at what could be a prison still under the juvenile justice system, well, you could look at, I don't say punishment, I say accountability, because that's what the family wants. The family has been saying they want accountability. That's what they want. And I think accountability can happen inside that system. Needs to happen. So again, sometimes the people that quickly push against that kind of have this primitive notion that it's just purely punishment behind the walls. And that's not the case. And it hasn't been that way for a long time. And it's crazy because some of these dialogues cross into the politics of the criminal justice system. And this really shouldn't be a political discussion. It really shouldn't be. Let's not cross into something political and make it muddy. Let's just find accountability and then trust that the system will do what they can to start the rehabilitation process. So with those two partnered together, A. Marie can get some healing. Her family can get some healing. All right. So this is where they, I feel sometimes go against the good work that's actually done in the prison setting. So instead, the first step is understanding why the offense happened, whether the accused children themselves experience abuse and neglect. And I get that. That's fine. Reports from the U.S. Justice Department and the National Institute of Health indicate that children who have been abused have a significantly higher rate of abusing others. Okay, but they could still be a threat. So I get that they could be victims too. Maybe there's two truths here, as I mentioned in other videos, but they could still be a threat. So What could have led to it? Is there anything else that contributed to the behavior? And that's from Jennifer Johnson, Executive Director of Cleveland's Canopy Child Advocacy Center. So again, I get it. It's definitely a needed concern. But while we're figuring that all out, I still feel there could still be some level of accountability where I think they have to go through some level of a controlled environment. And I know they're using the word prison. I'm using the word juvenile justice system because sometimes when they choose words that can make us hesitant. So sometimes they may be choosing the word prison, which puts in our mind an adult prison. So we may have to realize that verbiage is really being employed in a way to sell their narrative, in my opinion. But technically, I'm saying they need to go through the juvenile justice system, minimal. And their juvenile justice system is built for intervention and rehabilitation. So sometimes the choice of words is chosen strategically to go ahead and try to sway an argument when in the end is, no one said prison. What they're saying is a system that holds a level of accountability. And again, that's in juvenile justice, and also leans towards intervention and, as I said, intervention and rehabilitation. Reports from the U.S. Justice Department and the National Institute of Health indicate that children who have been abused have a significantly higher rate of abusing others. What could have led to it? Okay, we've read all that. Interventions can include specialized therapeutic foster care, residential treatment, anger management programs, and intensive therapy. Yeah, I get it, but you could also get that in a confined setting, because I think the key here is for, one, Marie and her family, for them to feel safe, because you have to worry about the victim here and her chance to recover. She's traumatized. And then also for the community to feel safe. Actions have consequences. There are powerful opportunities to get justice where people understand the harm they've caused and show a genuine desire to grow from it. Yeah, but you still got to make sure in the process there's safety. And at this point, safety comes first. Safety comes first. And I want to ensure that our victim and the victim's family feel safe. And I don't think the victims or the victim's family is against rehabilitation or intervention for these young kids, especially if they could have been victims. But what are we doing now for Marie and for her family? And that's where the accountability comes in. So a legal system not designed for the very young. While some states set a minimum age for prosecuting juveniles, Ohio does not. California, for example, bars prosecution for children under 12, diverting them instead to social services and child welfare. In Ohio, even children as young as 9 can face delinquency charges, though such cases are extremely rare. For children under 10, state detention isn't an option. The Ohio Department of Youth Services hasn't had an 11-year-old inmate since 2020 and hasn't admitted a 10-year-old since at least 2015. But we have extreme circumstances here, and we have to have a system that also can adapt and adjust. I mean, this is an extreme case. I'm sure it doesn't happen every day. So you really can't look at the past and be pigeonholed to what was done and what wasn't done, but rather, what are we going to do right now? That's what matters. And that's how precedent's set. That's how we move forward. Seems like there's more of a precedence of avoiding it as opposed to maybe just doing what's right and having some level of accountability so the family can feel safe, the victim can feel safe. Again, just a perspective. So it's a very difficult balance, said Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Michael O'Malley. You're dealing with a violent criminal act, but also with perpetrators who have likely experienced a great deal of trauma themselves. Before a case can move forward, judges must determine whether a child is competent to stand trial. Under Ohio law, defendants must understand the legal proceedings and be able to assist in their defense. Age itself can be the barrier for children. State law presumes competency for juveniles 14 and older. For younger children, judges evaluate understanding on case-by-case basis. It's not a catch-all answer. It's a case-by-case basis that's determined by the judge. When you're dealing with a young kid, the first thing you try to do is figure out if this kid understands what is going on, said J. Dean Carroll, a retired University of Akron law professor. If the kid doesn't understand the nature of the legal process, then the case goes away. If a child is found incompetent, courts can refer the family to child welfare services, therapy, or other programs rather than detention. And guys, we discussed this in a few of the shows I've done in the past. The process prompts difficult questions, Benza said. Did they understand what they were doing was wrong? Benza said. Can they comprehend what a police officer or defense attorney says? Does the 5-year-old victim even understand the court process? What is competent for a 9-year-old, but how do you not bring this case? Isn't this young girl afforded the right to have this case brought to court? The system should do its job, but its job in this case could be impossible. I mean, is it? I mean, can they not get those services in a more controlled setting? I mean, that's the key, right? I mean, they push it like it's an either or. Like either the person goes to prison or they can get these intervention and rehabilitation. But the system is built on intervention and rehabilitation. So why can't we do both? Rare but not unprecedented. So though rare, Ohio prosecutors have pursued serious charges against children before. In 2018, a 10-year-old Cleveland boy was found delinquent for killing his stepmother, Siobhan Willis. He was placed with the Ohio Department of Youth Services, where he will remain until age 21. And not to minimize that, but he killed an adult. Not to minimize it, because killing obviously is the harder charge, but they wanted to murder this young girl. But instead, they couldn't accomplish it for whatever reason, but they beat her, they strangled her, they sexually assaulted her, and then to find out not only is she 5, she's autistic. Brett Kiker, chief of the Juvenile Division for the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office, said charging decisions depend on several factors. We're looking at the statutes, the case laws, and the facts of the case and how the evidence stacks up, Kiker said. Last year, the youngest person charged with rape in Cuyahoga County Juvenile Court was 10. The median age of rape defendant in juvenile court was 14. For defense attorneys, Carroll said these cases often require expert help. Conditions like battered child syndrome, similar to battered women syndrome, can explain behaviors and shape defense strategies. Ken Rocco presided as a judge in Cuyahoga County Juvenile Court from 1983 to 1996. He said he rarely saw charges involving children under 10. And don't forget, we still have the attempted murder on top of the rape. I saw parents as being largely responsible for their children, he said. Parents who were druggies or alcohol abusers or just nasty people who would physically or mentally abuse their children. As Grandma used to say, apples don't fall far from the tree. And again, at this age, it makes sense to look at the home. But with that said, we need accountability, and the children that committed the act, even if they do come from that troubled home, obviously you can hold the parents accountable, but those kids still could pose a threat. And my thing is, why can't the stuff that they need be provided in the juvenile justice system? Investigating violent crimes involving very young children requires specialized protocols, from forensic interviews at child advocacy centers to questions handled by specially trained officers to limit trauma and ensure admissible evidence. When a child reports abuse or assault, detectives often do not interview them in a police station. Instead, a specially trained forensic interviewer meets with them at a child advocacy center where a live video feed follows detectives, social workers, and prosecutors to observe without repeatedly questioning the victim. We don't want to do more than one interview with the child, said Amy Kerr, a former Medina police detective. We want to minimize trauma. So again, it's like we're switching a perspective of where the real victims are right now. And the real victim is A. Marie. That's the real victim. We don't want to do more than just one interview. I said that after the initial interview, child advocates often remain in contact with the family for years, providing therapy, housing, transportation, and crisis support. Some children receive help for 2 to 4 years, Johnson said. Therapy often goes beyond traditional talk therapy, incorporating play or art to help children process trauma in developmentally appropriate ways. Meanwhile, juvenile suspects are entitled to both a guardian and an attorney. Interviews must be conducted with police present and handled with special care. Interrogating a 9 or 10-year-old about violent crimes requires specialized training, Stickrath said. And then this is a rare and unsettling case. For many in Cleveland, the brutality of the attack on the 5-year-old has forced uncomfortable conversations about violence, childhood trauma, and accountability. Local experts said the case underscores gaps in Ohio's juvenile justice system, gaps that appear when a system built for teenagers must process crimes committed by children in 3rd and 4th grades. Benza said it's impossible to separate the legal question from larger societal ones. And then how do we get to the point that our children did this, he asked. The next question will be, who will be to blame? And to be honest with you, that's what we don't want to happen. We don't want this to be shifted into who's to blame, that we freeze and we don't do nothing. So again, it's all about her right now. That's the key. And accountability, rehabilitation equals healing. That's a good definition of a criminal justice in my mind. And I still have to say, because I work in the system, we offer the rehabilitation, we offer the intervention. You know, it's a system that does it in a safe manner, because then the victim's family can still feel safe while we're working on what needs to be done to ensure success. And by the way, I mean, sometimes there are people you just can't reach. You could keep trying, but you can't reach them. And that's also a concern. You know, that's a concern. I mean, sometimes success isn't just about having someone completely change, but also recognizing when someone can't change. I think that should also be seen as something that has weight, because then you put pressure on people to create change in something that can't happen. And then they start believing that they are, because they're being pressured to. And next thing you know, that's how people manipulate the system. It's like the person that should want the change the most is the person that needs it. If you have the person that wants to push it because they need to, because that's how they define their career, then change really isn't rooted in what the other person is doing, but rather what is seen on a very vanity level as success. So again, I just wanted to read this out to you because I think we do have stuff that's done behind the wall. Again, the juvenile justice system is about intervention and rehabilitation. So I don't think this is an either or option. I think it's a blended option. There's two truths. I get it. But there's more than just the absolutes of two options here. It's the complexity where it blends, so you can get the accountability, the rehabilitation, and the healing for A. Marie. As always, guys, stay safe.